Mike, do you need to share a screen?
Yes, I will share a few slides. It won't be a pure slideshow, but I will share a few slides.
All right. Well, I just made you a co-host, so you should.
Woohoo! All
Yep.
right, party on.
All right. So I'm going to turn this part of the meeting over to Mike, who we were just talking about, is down in Costa Rica. And if
Oh,
you no, wait,
true.
Peru. That's
Yes.
why did I say Costa Rica?
I was
Um,
there once too.
right,
He's a little
Peru,
further south than that.
which is down close to. It's in South America.
Yes.
Yeah. So, anyways, if you have not had a one-to-one with Mike, I highly encourage you to because he's so enjoyable to get to know and you can learn so much from him. So I'm going to stop talking and turn this part of the meeting. Santa Papa John, can you give us 15 minutes? Okay. All right. Go for it, Mike.
Well, thanks for
Come on,
that,
Mike.
Angela. And considering that we are either proud to be the veterans or military supporters, it's a great day to mention that this past Saturday was the 82nd anniversary of D-Day. If you've ever seen
Wow.
Saving Private Ryan, yeah, that. And back in those days, around that time, now my grandfather, Joe McQuillen Sr., was not at Normandy, but he was already on the beaches in Italy fighting in World War II. And I think about those times. I think about anytime we have an opportunity to pay homage to the people who fought for our country and the people who played a supporting role all at the same time. This is a great day to do it, and this is a great group to do it with because the people who served as veterans and the people in supporting roles are equally as important. And nothing is better than this story about my grandfather and my Uncle Larry. See, my grandfather was drafted just a few months after my father was born.
Hmm.
Should have gotten a deferment, but deferments back then were based more on economic level than immediate family need. So Joe Sr. went off to train, and he was in Italy. And just about the time, you think the country would support its people fighting overseas, but just about the time that my grandfather was laying on the battlefield and being read his last rites, the landlord back in Brooklyn wanted to move my grandmother out. It was a rent-controlled apartment, and if she gets moved out, he could charge the new tenant more money. Thankfully, my great uncle Larry, who I never met, was there, and he persuaded the landlord. Apparently, legend has it, he put a gun to the landlord's head and said, "You are not going to move Eleanor out of that apartment." Uncle Larry was stateside to make sure the family was taken care of. A few years later, back in 1946, my father's just 4 years old looking out the window of the apartment, and he sees Uncle Larry side by side with a very handsome American soldier. And he looked out and said, "Is that my daddy?" Apparently, when that field chaplain was reading my grandfather his last rites, he said, "God is calling." Joe Sr. said, "Tell him I'm not home. I got things to do." Little quinine supplements, he survived and he came back. And then Joe Sr. and Uncle Larry were quite the terror in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. Now, Uncle Larry was a wild man. They both went to work on the docks and the shore. They were longshoremen in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. Now, Uncle Larry's wife used to have to go Friday afternoon to grab Larry from the docks, bring him home, make sure he didn't go down to Fifth Avenue and drink away his paycheck. Now, she was nearsighted, or she farsighted. She was farsighted. So up close, she couldn't see Uncle Larry's face too clearly, but she could tell Uncle Larry by his walk. Uncle Larry had this certain swagger to him, a certain gangster walk to him, to the point that when Larry knew she was coming, he would change his gait up to this penguin walk to scoot by her to get down to Fifth Avenue, but she usually grabbed onto him. Fast forward 50 years. Now it's family day on Paris Island. We're about to meet the families, and the drill instructor says, "You, McQuillen, go back and shave." I had a little stubble, had to be clean shaven to meet the families. So if you've ever been to Paris Island, you know that the grandstand is in front of the parade deck, and on the far end is 1st Battalion. And I'm walking out of the squad bay, about a quarter mile away from the barracks, from the grandstand. And my father looks off in the distance and he said, "Hey, look, that's Mike." I was about a quarter mile away. I hadn't seen my family in about 3 months. I've got a high-end tight buzz cut, Marine Corps uniform, slightly different upper body from doing push-ups, a lot of push-ups. So how did he recognize me from so far away after such a long time looking so different? It was the walk. It was Uncle Larry's gangster walk. Somehow I inherited that. I never met Larry, and my family has come a long way from Brooklyn. Okay, not too far from Salvatore, grew up on the mean streets of Massapequa on Long Island. We've come a long way from hustling in Brooklyn and running with the Legs Diamond crew and duking it out with a Brooklyn slumlord. But the walk never went away. That gangster strut. And how does that translate to what we do? In business, especially in solo businesses, when it comes to presenting a business and speaking, I see so many people try to be more refined, try to be more perfect, try to be more correct, because we think that corporate boardrooms and conference rooms and TED Talks, where every word is scripted and every movement is staged, is the right way to speak. But in promoting your business, my challenge to you is this: are you keeping your strut? Do you still have the gangster strut? Can you separate formal from professional? Can you keep that professionalism while still being your real, genuine self? And it's not enough to just say the word authenticity. In fact, a lot of people go to ChatGPT to get that authenticity message. So the way to do that is in how you present yourself, what information you choose to tell that audience, and what stories you choose to tell. In my story about Uncle Larry, it was more about Uncle Larry, my grandfather, than it was about me, but you learned a whole lot about me, didn't you? So in this time we have together, I want to compare what you see in most presentations and give you a few ideas on the kind of stories you can tell long before you tell your story. You want to tell your backstory, what makes you so special? Absolutely, but first you have to earn it. You have to earn it by engaging that audience to figure out, who is this person? Who is this guy with the water bottle? Who is this woman with so many children in the I want to know that. You've got to build that mystique first. I want to show you what most people do. I'm not accusing anybody in this room, although you've probably seen it. This is what most people do to start up their presentation. Let's talk about me. Yes, I'm a thought leader, meaning everything I think is more important than what you think. And I am a high performer. Now, when I was a kid, I had a paper route. And after the paper route, I used to go to Honey's candy store. And I used to play for $2. I get a Dr. Pepper for 75 cents, a Milky Way for 50, and then 3/4 to play pinball. And I was a high performer on that Cyclone pinball machine. If that's what it means to be a high performer, then count me in, but I would never lead off a presentation with that. Nor would I lead off with a Fugazi title like a Chief Excellency Officer. And I'm an award-winning speaker. Mind you, if you're in Toastmasters, everybody's an award-winning speaker. I've got ribbons all over the place and certificates. But this is my favorite. I met Tony Robbins once. He said, "Hi, nice to meet you." Somehow that goes in the feed. And then, if my self-anointed credentials aren't enough, I've got some real tangible ones too. That's right, I'm a certified excellency coach. I hope you're impressed because I printed this one in Canva. Not only that, I'm an author. Damn, I'm good. A modest memoir, but good news. When I released this book, I put her on Amazon for 99 cents. I got a few of my friends and family to buy it. I put her in an obscure category, and now I'm a best-selling author. What they didn't tell you is that in this hour we spend together, 16,000 books will be on the Amazon bestseller list. 100 books in 160 categories every hour, 24/7, 365.25, counting for leap year. Now, if you wrote a book, good for you. Tell me about what's in it, not the fact that you sold it on Amazon for $1. Same thing, I am a TEDx speaker. Okay, people are so quick to showcase their credentials. But what really matters, the only credential that matters, is your genuine concern for other people. There are other networking groups when you get to hard pitch and hustle your product in front of people. This is one group where really heart-centered to get to know each other. You know what? I've spun off business from this group. I've met clients here, and you've never heard me hard pitch. You've never heard me hustle. We have a genuine, heartfelt connection when we come here. And that's why I don't feel bad making fun of the thought leaders and the humana and I'm so good, I'm so great. Here are some of the stories that belong in your story file. Before you tell the big one, before you tell the story of why you walked away from the paycheck to start your own business, here are some other stories that are a lot lighter, a lot more fun to tell, and a lot more relatable to your audience. Now, you're probably wondering, why would you be handwriting on paper in front of a typewriter? I don't know. What I do know is I paid $3 for this image on Shutterstock, so we're going with it. Number one is a modest success story. I already told you I had the highest score on the Cyclone pinball game at Hundy's Candy Store. I told you I had a paper route when I was 12. I was a good pinball player, and I knew how to manage a budget. I get to tell you a little something about myself, but it didn't sound like I was boasting, did it? Do you have a modest success that's almost laughable? Around the time I had that paper route, I also won the school spelling bee. And there's an incredible lesson in that, in how I won the spelling bee. The girl who came in runner-up didn't want to win. She sabotaged on the word phonics because she didn't want the attention. And I use that as a metaphor in business and how most people don't want the attention. They shy from the spotlight. Olivia, my runner-up, she had that luxury. You don't. All tied into a very modest success story. I'm getting the short version. I'm going to go through this quickly. Gratitude is easy to say, thou shalt have gratitude. If you have a story where you discover your gratitude, when first you play the victim, it's so much fun. You have no idea what you're missing out on. If you don't get in front of that audience and throw a mini temper tantrum and say, poor me, as long as you come out of that story grateful, you can be as miserable as you want when you start. But just to say, you should be grateful, you should be grateful. I don't know. That doesn't do it for me. Maybe you, I don't know. And here's another one. I used to believe, and I encourage you to write this down. I used to do this in a PDF, a fillable PDF, but then I realized how many PDFs I have in my hard drive that I never look at. But you handwrite it, you'll remember it. I used to believe this, but now I realize that. Let your audience see your learning process. Your knowledge gets you nowhere. I have another story about that. It involves me entering a contest to get a free tattoo on my butt, but this is short term and there are ladies present. Anyway, that's what your knowledge is good for. You want to hear the whole thing, come to my next workshop. I used to believe this. In the fitness world, I always tell people, I used to believe that golf was a low impact sport until I started training clients who played golf. Turns out 18 holes, rotating that light little stick 270 degrees to drive that little ball a couple hundred yards, times 18 holes plus the short game, prolonged standing, long walking, visits from the beverage cart, takes its toll on the body. I learned something. And when people see your learning process, they're vulnerable to learn from you too. Once you own up, they sign up. These are 3 stories that must be in your story portfolio. You get a whole lot of autobiography in there too. Okay, here are some, I'm going to go through this quickly. A good example you look up to. The only thing better than a good example, a bad example. If I had a different theme, I would definitely give you an example of a bad speech. I've got lots of them. Okay, sometime a reality check. When this is beyond the misconception when somebody pulled their punk card on you. Going to encourage you to screenshot this, Write them down and put these. And next time you speak, I'm challenging you to put one of these stories in there. And once you do, the way to tell the story is 3 levels of conflict. Okay, whatever the conflict is, you want to raise that conflict, and there's an internal conflict to go with it. We don't have time to go over that, but there are resources I can steer you to. And of course, you can come to my next workshop, which is at the end of this month, June 25th. There's a link in the chat for that. So I'm going to stop the share. For your audience to have full trust in you, not just to applaud and say, damn, you're good, and buy a copy of your autobiography for 99 cents. For them to see the real you, they need to hear real stories and see that gangster swagger. So whether you're on Park Avenue or whether you're in the streets of Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, no matter what your level of prestige, no matter what your level of professionalism, you always have the essence of who you are. You always keep that gangster walk. Back to you.
That
Wow.
was absolutely perfect. Thank you so much, Mike. Does we have time for some questions? Does anybody have a question? Ruben? Mhm.
Mike, tell me this is material, okay? I was in, we were in college, a group of friends of mine, and we needed to pass this one class, statistics, in order to graduate.
Mhm.
It was on the line. All these guys had different jobs or whatever. So he said, "What are we going to do? What are we going to do? We can't fail this class." So I said, "We got to come up with an idea." So I found out the teacher, he was having a birthday. So we brought a birthday cake in with candles lit into the class on his birthday.
Yeah.
Mike, all of us passed that class. What do
Nicely
you think
done.
of that? Is that a story?
That's a great story. We can elevate that conflict a little bit, Ruben. But yes, a short story. Yes, that's awesome. What are we going to do? Have to pass statistics. There's the initial conflict. If we don't pass statistics, we're going to lose our jobs. Bad things are going to happen. There's the elevated conflict, and then the internal something. Is it really about statistics or is it really about relationships here? Does the teacher want us to pass the test or show him that we care? And that's when the birthday cake becomes a celebration. Of course, there's like a birthday statistic in there too. Even better. Love it. Great story. Anything else?
Anybody else have a question they want to?
Questions, comments, or anecdotes?
Yep.
I know for me when I'm speaking, well, first of all, when I see a speaker stand up there and she's going on and on and on about her credentials, it can be a turnoff, like what Mike was saying. Definitely a turnoff. 60 seconds, that's not the same thing as what I'm talking about. But when I'm on stage, I do my absolute best to intertwine my story all throughout the talk. Okay. So you won't hear about my story in a nut, and to throw up on people right away. I just can't do that. So it's worked very, very well for me. So if you are speaking in a presentation, try to intertwine your message in there. And Mike, I loved what you said about the modest success, because the first thing that came to my mind was my story of being a pool hustler.
Yeah,
Always makes
exactly.
people.
See, that's so cool. Now, that is everything you say is something about. You say, let me tell you a little something about myself. Everything you say is a little something about yourself. You're a
Right.
pool hustler. Number one, it means you're good at geometry. You're good at reading people. You're good at playing the unassuming role. And to learn how to play pool, chances are you done been through some stuff. You didn't learn billiards at some fancy academy, right? You learned to hustle pool doing some stuff that wherever you learn that, that's where your real story is. And that builds up the mystique. Where did she learn how to play pool anyway?
Yeah, great presentation, Mike, for being on the spot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. All right. I am going to share my screen, and I highly encourage you, if you need a speaking coach, or if you want to brush up your speaking, Mike always has workshops. And do you have one coming up that you want to share with everyone?
Funny you should ask, Angela. Now the premium, here's a registration link for the end of the month. Now, my premium workshop is a 3-hour workshop. It's $47. That's coming up this coming Thursday. You get that. I got a few bonuses I'll throw in. And for this group, I'll throw in all the bonuses. So I'll put that here as well. And this will take you to my landing page. The second link will take you to the landing page. Find out more. So go for the freebie for an hour at the end of the month, $47 for 3 hours plus bonuses, and you get the extraordinary story session with me on top of that. All the goodies in told, that the value is just about $1,000. You get it for $47. Still room for you.